there, Vikings fans. You are listening to the Purple People podcast. My name is Kyle West. I'm accompanied by Adam Carlson.
I am here.
Kyle Smith.
Hey guys, what's going on?
We're ready to talk Vikings football, substantial Vikings football. We got all kinds of topics today.
First off, we got to issue an apology. It's a lot later in the week than we usually put shows out. But we are going to try to get back on path here. We might not put the next show out until maybe Tuesday or Wednesday just to try to figure out, have enough news to do a show, but not lose a week's worth of shows. You guys understand.
Yeah.
But we had free agency this week, and free agency is a lot of fun.
It's like Christmas.
A lot of fun. Because everybody has the names of the players that they want. Everybody knows some idea of what players fit in where. But until it happens, you never know. And that's why people are glued to social media. They have big specials on television for all of it. And I'll be honest, I sat and watched every second of NFL Network during the free agency frenzy. I did.
I'm extremely jealous.
But this is episode number 194 of the Purple People podcast. It is titled Name That Boone. I don't know if you guys know this about me. I am a big fan of classic game shows. You couldn't tear me away from What's My Line or the best Match Game. Oh, Match Game's so good. But Name That Tune. Another good one.
Well, I do know you're the only person I know that still watches Jeopardy, Adam.
It was such a good show, and I learned so much.
You know what I've seen over the years for Jeopardy, though? Maybe I'm just getting older and picking up a lot of things, but it was on recently, and I was watching it, and I got about 8 or 9 questions right, and I was very impressed. You know, when you're a kid and you're watching, you're like, I don't get this show. It's not fun. Now you're thinking, man, I have like $4,000. Jeopardy needs to write
those $100, $200 questions. You're like, yeah, I'm getting these puppies. Raking in the cash. But just to explain a little bit, Kyle Smith's going to be a little quiet for this show. He is currently out of the country, using his cell phone to record the show, so he might be a little quieter, but we apologize for that as well.
I told the guys I'll yell. I will scream so you guys can hear me. We got a lot of facts and fun stuff to go over.
We have a lot. I mean, like, a lot. So let's get started. Quick hits, we narrowed it down to as little as possible. First off, Stefon Diggs. If you send him one of those messages that say you have to forward this or you'll have bad luck within 5 minutes or whatever, he'll retweet it. He will. But then he'll block you. He's superstitious, but he don't like it. And I think that's kind of fun. It shows a little bit of light into the personality of the players rather than what we just get to see on the field. And stupid little stuff like this helps people relate in a weird way. I think, anyway. And Stefon Diggs is already one of those guys that's super likable. So hearing stuff like this is just pretty cool. So do you guys believe in those bad luck chains?
Nope, not one bit.
Absolutely not, but I will tell you, my inner 13-year-old girl screams when a celebrity or an athlete tweets back at me or favorites something. I get all giddy. Like you said, you connect with them. You're like, oh, they took 3 seconds out of their day to acknowledge me. I'm cool.
Absolutely. This next quick hit I'm going to delete because there's absolutely no relevance to it anymore.
Nope. Thank you, free agency.
Right.
You guys never know.
Now, we got some US Bank Stadium news. First off, there's going to be some art in there. We already know that. They commissioned fan art. Carl Eller already said that he's going to be putting some art in there. And now 2 more Vikings will join him putting some stuff in there. Matt Blair, known photographer. Really cool stuff. And Jim Marshall was known back in the day for drawing an eagle on some of his stuff, like his helmet, his jersey, all over. He's going to draw a big old eagle for that place, and it's going to be awesome. I'm excited about it.
This is so cool. Like, if you have any nerd qualities about the Vikings and history, this stuff makes you giddy inside. This is really cool. This is probably my favorite quick hit.
I was at an autograph signing over the summer, and we got to meet Matt Blair, and it was really funny because I didn't know he was into photography. And like when you, of course, you pay to get their autograph, but you got his autograph, and then you also got a postcard of like a bridge that was a photograph that he took, and of course at the time it was really funny because you didn't really know that he was into photography, and no one quite
Right.
knew why you were getting this photograph of a bridge with his stuff. And it was really good,
That is
really,
kind of funny.
yeah, really random, really good photo though. He does good work. You should definitely check his stuff out.
Absolutely. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see what these guys put up in there. We already know what Jim Marshall's putting up. Carl Eller, I believe, is doing a little bit of sculpture work. Matt Blair is going to do the photography. Jim Marshall, the big bird, and maybe we'll have even more stuff. But when you go to US Bank Stadium now, when it opens, there's stuff in there for the Vikings fans of all generation, not just the new fans. Older fans can go around and they can recognize some of this art and some of the old photos and stuff like that. It's going to be fantastic. US Bank Stadium's also got another little problem the Minnesota Vikings don't like. The street running in front of the stadium is named Chicago Avenue, and the Minnesota Vikings say we cannot have that. They have submitted a form to the city of Minneapolis to change the name of that section of street.
Yes, and I think we should emphasize on section of the street. There are some people on Twitter that are like, they can't change the name of the full street. Well, they don't want to. They just want the area immediately in front of the stadium to not be Chicago Avenue. So it's fine. Anti-stadium folks, like, quit. You've lost on everything else you've tried complaining about. So stop. They're gonna change the name of it. Like, whatever. It'll be
We already got
fine.
sections of Minneapolis of road devoted to
Bud
Bud
Grant.
Grant, Kirby Puckett, other Minnesota Vikings stars too. So why not?
I think it should be the Purple People Podcast Avenue. Like,
It would be pretty great.
can we kickstart that? Like, is that like a thing that we can crowdsource?
I don't know if we can't. If we have to do a GoFundMe to pay for our.
Yeah, I was just gonna say
iTunes,
a GoFundMe, and we'll put it on Twitter. We'll put it on the Facebook page, and we'll just make a big stink about it.
Yeah.
It'll be great. The final quick hit is hopefully this will reach you guys before this actually happens, but offensive tackle Andre Smith is expected to visit with the Minnesota Vikings this weekend. I've heard conflicting reports as to whether it's going to be Saturday or Sunday, but the former Cincinnati Bengals offensive tackle could be a guy to bring in and compete on either side of the offensive line. And I know that I love offensive line depth and talent.
I do too.
There are rumors out there that he's not the hardest worker, but that won't fly in Minnesota.
You were talking so much about O-line. This is just like my inner Adam Carlson is so happy this year. I am extremely excited for how much, and we're going to talk about the players that we signed and re-signed here in a second, but you guys are going to see, I think a lot of concern was with the line and protecting Teddy, and that was kind of a focal point of, hey, we need to go out there and we need to beef up. It's really exciting.
Well, you're talking about additions, but we also had some losses.
Hey, addition by subtraction. Sometimes you got to do it.
So let's start by talking about the guys that already are cut from the Vikings. Luckily, I don't think we've had a player signed away from the Vikings yet. I think all the Minnesota Vikings free agents have either been re-signed by Minnesota or are still out there in the pool of free agents.
The pool.
So that's a good thing, but the Minnesota Vikings did cut two players. Austin Wentworth, the offensive tackle. The Minnesota Vikings didn't have to, but they awarded him $333,000 anyway in bonuses upon his exit as kind of a parting gift. So that was kind of nice.
Yeah, and I guess he had some health issues.
He did.
That arose where, like, he lost feeling entirely in his legs and, like, could not walk. So that one was more of a, like, health reasons that he's no longer with the team. Probably going to retire, I would imagine.
Most likely.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely. So that's a classy move to give him that as they let him go. That way he'll be able to cover some of his expenses and all that jazz. So good stuff there. The other player cut was a big one, but one where the writing was on the wall. We'd talked about it several times. Wide receiver Mike Wallace and the Minnesota Vikings couldn't come to an agreement on a salary when it was said that they were going to meet at the combine and try to figure out a pay cut for Wallace eventually. Talks died off, and the Vikings ended up releasing him. This saves $11.5 million against the salary cap, and the Vikings didn't hesitate to spend some of that in free agency.
Nope, and I don't think we even really need to harp on that too much. I think this isn't all something we expected to happen.
We talked plenty about it, and we
Yep.
knew it was going to happen.
I will say, just one thing about it. I like what Mike Zimmer said, and I'll be honest with you. I think the Vikings had a crush on him a year too late, maybe 2 years too late. But Mike Zimmer did say, hey, he worked hard and he didn't complain about anything. So best of luck. No hard feelings, man. It's just you got to produce for that kind of money. But
Hmm.
I didn't mind having him on the team, but he just didn't produce for us. But he wasn't a distraction like we had heard. So best of luck
No,
to you,
he
Mike
was a classy
Wallace.
guy.
Hmm.
Even though the production wasn't there, he didn't speak up about it a lot. He didn't raise a big fuss. He wasn't a distraction, which was important. We got some players re-signing to the Minnesota Vikings. These are free agents that the Minnesota Vikings decided to bring back. I'll go over these pretty quickly since there are several. Andrew Sendejo came back on a $16 million deal over 4 years. And I know a lot of people didn't care for that deal on social media. They felt it was too much. But they have to understand that it's not just Sendejo, the safety, who won't be starting, by the way, most likely. Sendejo will be mostly a special teamer, and a lot of that guaranteed money is up front. It's basically a 2 year deal with incentives. So before you go crazy getting angry about it, it is a rather cap-friendly deal. It's just presented in a way that immediately makes you go, "Really?" That one's not too bad. Here's the big one, the big shocker right here. I could not believe this one. Big Phil Loadholt taking a big cut, goes down to a $2 million base salary, but can earn up to 3.5 mil with incentives. This is a big cut for a guy who had a major injury last year. The Vikings must not be very sure about how he can go, and Phil himself must be questioning it a little bit. Phil's been working hard to come back, and it would be great if he could come back at full strength. But if he can't, the Minnesota Vikings have hedged their bets, and Phil Loadholt has been willing to take a big pay cut to stay with the Vikings and work. So it's good to see on both sides. I like Big Phil though. I'm upset to see that he's going to miss out on some money because he was a big part of road grading Adrian Peterson for some of those big seasons. But if he can return to the way he was, he'll get big deals again. So fingers crossed for him.
Yeah, out of the two, between Loadholt and Khalil, I think we all kind of figured that there would be a bit of a pay cut, and one of them was going to have to take a larger one. And honestly, I thought it was going to be Matt Khalil that was going to do the restructure. And
Me too.
I'm not surprised that Phil Loadholt ended up taking, a cut. I think it makes sense given the injury history and whatnot with him that he did. But for as much of it, that is a little bit of a shock on that one.
Yeah, Phil Loadholt's 11 million, or not Phil Loadholt, but Matt Khalil's 11 million becoming guaranteed was a
Hmm.
surprise to me.
And also, you got to look at it from the Vikings' perspective, is that they have TJ Clemmings, who essentially started for them all last season at that position. And yeah, you can grade him up and down, but at the end of the day, he did start and he did produce for the team. So maybe that does, given the injury history with Phil Loadholt, make him a little bit more expendable than what you would think.
It's true. That is true. Carter Bykowski came back on a 1 year, $600,000 deal. Adam Thielen, 1 year, 600,000. Audie Cole, 1 year, 840,000. Kenrick Ellis, 1 year, 810,000. And the one that was just tonight, because we are recording this rather late at night, it was Marcus Sherrill's a 2 year deal. The terms, as of this recording, are unknown.
Hmm. I kind of wish that Adam Thielen would have got more than a 1 year contract. Like, I kind of think he's earned more than a 1 year prove it deal. Like, I don't know. If they can dish out an incentive based contract for Sendejo, can't they do something like that for Adam Thielen?
You'd hope because he can contribute in so many
Yeah.
ways. Personally, I'm just glad he's with the team, and I hope that this contract leads to bigger and better things for
Hmm.
him. Fingers crossed there. Kenrick Ellis coming back isn't a big shocker. Marcus Sherrill's got tested in a lot of places. He was headed to
I think Miami.
Miami for a
Yes.
test, and I believe the Giants as well. I am actually pretty surprised he didn't get snapped up by someone because he is one of the better punt returners in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting there. Free agents from other teams, the Vikings went out and got 4 of them.
Yeah. More active than what I thought they were going to be during this free agency period, but active
Absolutely.
in a good way.
The first big one that came through was guard Alex Boone. And when I
Ooh
say big, I
boy.
do mean big.
I'm so
4
excited
year,
we got this guy.
oh yeah, 4 year, 26.8 million, 10 million guaranteed. He is one of those tough guys on the offensive line that when you see him and you see the number that he's wearing, you might swear that Hutch is back.
I love it. I love it.
He's got that mean streak, that attitude, that leadership quality on the offensive line. Mike Zimmer this offseason came out and said, we need meanness, toughness back on our offensive line, and they made sure to go out and get it.
Yeah.
Notable thing about Alex Boone, if you guys didn't hear, if you didn't get any updates, I got to listen to him when he signed, and he did a little little presser, and he said, "I already love Teddy, and I will do everything I can to protect him." I don't care if he's just blowing smoke. That's what I wanted to hear, and I hope that's true, and that's all. That's what all the fans wanted to hear. So it's pretty sweet knowing that. Hopefully, he really does like Teddy so far, but to know how gritty his attitude is he's going to fit right in with what Zimmer wants to do.
Absolutely. We had Emmanuel Lamar. I'm not 100% sure of the pronunciation, I'll be honest. Linebacker, special teams. He is coming over 2 years, 6 million, the 2.5 million guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
And also Travis Lewis, linebacker, 1 year, 810,000. And then you got the one that me and Mr. Smith we don't agree on as far as the quality of it. Michael Griffin, the safety, 1 year, 2.5 million with 750,000 guaranteed. It's a low risk deal, but is it really? Michael Griffin was one of the worst rated safeties the past couple of years. As a matter of fact, I don't think he's graded out positively in the past 6 years. In the final Pro Football Focus ratings, he ended up only 1 spot above Andrew Sandejo. So I don't know. I don't see it. A lot of fans out there were hoping for Ioka or Reggie Nelson, and when neither of those happened, and Michael Griffin came in, it was just a bombshell of disappointment for me. I still hope that Michael Griffin can come back and rejuvenate his career the way that Terrence Newman did, but I'm not going to hold my breath. But I hope he can prove me wrong. I hope he can.
Wouldn't be the first time, wouldn't be the last time that a player gets signed and then cut a month or so later or during training camp, and that could be the one. You know, they're like you said, they're taking a risk, and I guess we'll see what happens.
It's true. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what did you like about this, Mr. Smith?
Um, like you said, I know that he's not graded as high that people want. He's not Ioka. He's not Nelson, which I was really hoping for Ioka. But um, like you said, the thing that I liked about it was the low risk. And like Kyle said, he could very well be gone before the season starts. So it's kind of potato between him and Sendejo, who's going to start, who's not. Because like you said earlier about Sendejo, that's when you see the face value of his contract, everybody's like, what the hell? Why did he get so much? It's really not a bad deal against the cap. And another fun fact that you guys should all know, the salary cap in the NFL has gone up. So you're going to see a lot more money for players than you're used to hearing and seeing about. So that's pretty much the money standpoint for me. I like the fact that we're not throwing a bunch at a guy that could potentially not even be here.
Yeah, there was a lot of money thrown around in free agency, lots of it,
Mm-hmm.
to some players who may or may not deserve it. But overall, I think the Vikings did a good job going out and signing some players at low risk contracts. They went after their free agents on the offensive line to try to fix that up, make things easier so they'll have less holes to address in the draft, and so they can take the best player available and just keep moving forward. Overall, this was a very Rick Spielman first couple days of free agency. If these guys don't work out, no big deal. No huge loss there. Alex Boone was the one guy they kind of pushed their chips in a bit on, but I got a good feeling about that investment.
He's a proven talent as well too. Like he's by far the most proven one in the bunch,
Well,
and the contract reflects it.
I believe 3 of the guys that Spielman signed came off season-ending injuries last
Hmm.
year, which might be a good way to find values, is to get these guys that are going to bounce back.
He does like signing the injured guys and bringing them in.
And I do think it's because he can get them at a little bit of a discount.
Hmm.
That's my theory anyway. Our main topic for this week, we're going to talk running backs. A pretty easy selection. Zach Line, who isn't on my list, I believe, didn't he get signed back?
I haven't heard anything about Zach Line, but I can't imagine there's going to be much of a market for Zach Line.
For some reason, I thought the Vikings signed him back. But of course, there's Adrian Peterson, and everybody has an opinion about Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
There we go.
I don't want to step on toes. AP is AP. He's still top 5. He's going to be 31 this year. If you want to be realistic about it, I'll put my opinion out there. And if you guys don't like it, please feel free to message us or tweet us and tell us how you feel. But I think last year was a fluke. I think the negatives for Adrian was coming out of the pistol. I don't think he's used to that. It's not something we're used to seeing with him, and I think he would have had a lot more runs of more than a yard or a lot less negative plays had he not been running that style. But that's what Norv gets paid for, and I'm not going to argue with him on that because he's really good at it. Like I've said on previous shows, the top 2 other running backs besides him were out. And a lot of people are saying, oh, he won the rushing crown. I don't care about individual stats. This is a team sport. We went to the playoffs. We lost. Crucial things for me about Adrian: fumbling and money. I think if you don't produce as well as you used to, which he's still a pretty top producing guy, I don't like the money that he gets staying around this old. I think he has proven to us that injuries don't really thwart him too bad. Even with the ACL tear, he had that amazing season. But I'll be honest with you, I was kind of hoping to get draft picks for AP. I think it's the perfect time to trade him. I don't think we're going to see anywhere close to a 2,000-yard season ever again. I think he's going to float around 12 to 1,300 yards every year. I really hope if we keep him that he gets the fumbling under control, because we can't have the ball being lost in crucial games at the worst time.
Yeah, Adrian Peterson's one of those guys that he always talks 2,000 yards, but I think that 1,500 should be more along the lines of his goal these days.
Yes.
Well, when I say goal, I don't mean aim for 1,500. You aim for the stars, man. You set your goal at 8,000 yards rushing for the season if you want, and try your darndest to accomplish it. But realistically, he should think 1,500 ain't too shabby. I looked up Zach Line, and Zach Line was tendered for $1.67 million, but hasn't agreed to the terms of the tender. So that is the situation there.
The Zach Line contract holdout dispute going on.
He's just listening to a couple other offers. I'm sure he'll figure something out here and sign. I don't know what the market is for fullbacks. Most teams don't even use them these days.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be interesting. Jerick McKinnon, dynamic young running back, guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield, and a guy that really could be a big part of the future for the Minnesota Vikings.
He's the up-and-coming star on this roster, and that's just the way it is. And I really think that the focus for this season, you should see a shift in dynamic with more of Jerick McKinnon on the field and Adrian Peterson as more of a situational running back. He's not going to like that, but I think that's how you can best utilize him at this stage in his career. Jerick is a guy that you can move around, and he can catch better passes. He can be more of a decisive route runner, and I think he's better in blocking. And both running backs, and I'm assuming Matt Asiata hasn't signed, but I think he'll be back as well too as the third back. But all 3 of these guys are going to benefit mightily from having the restructure and reshuffling on the offensive line. That should be able to, Alex Boone should be able to open up more holes for the backs so that they don't get constantly stuffed, because there were a lot of plays where, you want to rag on Adrian for having a negative run or a 1 yard run, but a lot of the times it was as soon as he was getting the ball, he's got defenders in his face. And that's not necessarily his fault, that's the guys in front of him. And so it's only going to help having a better offensive line for all of the running backs on this team.
For sure. The real question right now is whether or not Matt Asiata will be back. I do hope that he does make a return to the Vikings, because when or if Adrian Peterson is unable to play, or they need to pull him out for a little while to get him a rest or something like that, I really like the tandem of him and Jerick McKinnon. I do. I think they complement each other well. They're different play styles. They're awesome. And Asiata is strangely deceptive at receiving the ball out of the backfield.
Yeah.
And teams bite on that so often. They think he's just a bowling ball, but he can do more.
I think he'll be back. I'm pretty confident that he will be. I think he said that he likes playing in Minnesota, so I mean, it comes down to contract and money. Unless they shoot him like a real lowball offer, I don't really see a scenario in which he doesn't come back to the team.
I hope you're right. I do hope you're right. So overall, we expect pretty much everybody at the running back position to return. Don't see a whole lot of changes there unless something big happens in the draft. I don't see them pursuing another running back free agent, or major one anyway. That isn't just a camp body or competition.
No Arian Foster?
No. No Arian Foster, no Ray Rice, none of that stuff. It's amazing how free agency rolls around and just names come up out of the past. It's amazing.
I got something that might stir up stuff since we're talking about running backs, and this is just another one I'd like to get your guys' opinion on. So we have a good general manager. I like him a lot. I think he's only fluffed on a 3 or 4 draft picks in the past 4 years, so it's not bad at all. So we've worked on the line so far. I know wide receiver is a big topic, but if you're sitting there at 23 and we're not going to jump up to grab anyone, I don't feel like we are. And the guards that you want to look at are gone. The top 2 or 3 receivers are gone. And you have a Derrick Henry sitting there. Would you guys be angry if we picked that young man up?
No.
That's the question.
Of course you do. Of course you do. You always draft best available, because I always bring up the situation, because it's relatively recent, is that this team didn't need Adrian Peterson when we drafted him. We had Chester Taylor, who was coming off a 1,000-yard season or whatever, and Chester Taylor was looking really good for Minnesota. And running back was not a position of need for the Vikings, but Adrian fell a little bit in the draft, and suddenly you have him in front of you. So of course you do it. If there is a running back that slides that falls to Minnesota, you're looking at Adrian and you're going, he's got, his better years are behind him at this point. Can he still be productive? Can he still contribute to this team? Of course he can, but if there is that good of a talent that's in front of you, of course you take it.
And I think that if Matt Asiata doesn't return to the Vikings, that a selection like that is even more likely.
If Asiata doesn't come back, I mean, we've only got two running backs on the team right now, so you need that is a position of need.
Just interesting to see, and a lot of the analysts out there are doing the draft, and you know how that goes. If you've ever looked at those, everybody picks someone different. Wide receivers a big topic. Improving the line is a big topic, but I haven't really seen any other picks. It's a bunch of variant names, but that intrigues me a lot. That's something in the back of my mind, because you could potentially be getting Adrian's replacement. I'm not taking anything away from Jerick McKinnon. I love him. I love his style of play, and like you guys said, I think he's going to be on the team for a while. But with the way that the position is not being used as much as it was 10, 20 years ago, I could see that happening. It's a little intriguing thing to look for when you go to the draft. Since we were talking about running backs.
I'll make a draft day prediction for you guys, because this happens every single year to Vikings fans. We always sit here and we always talk about how we want the quarterback, we want the wide receiver, we want the flashy. generalizing here, Adam, is we want the flash positions, and then it's like we're gonna get a defensive end or a defensive tackle, and everyone's gonna complain because they don't know who it is, and then all of a sudden we've got Anthony Barr, and it's just fantastic, and it's the best draft pick you never would have thought of, and that's what's gonna
You know
happen.
you're
And
you're right
I
because this is
know
a defensive line
it's Mike
draft.
Zimmer's team. I mean, come on, we're going defense, guys.
I
That's
personally
too
can't wait
funny.
for the draft. It's one of my favorite times of the year. I've started my NFL draft profiles on Vikings.com or not Vikings.com. I wish I was there. On the VikingAge.com. And there are several of them that are up. A lot of the first round prospects. I did one on a guy that I think might be a second rounder, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. I just love the draft. I really do.
hmm
It's amazing the enigma that the draft is. It's just all these things that could happen that you want to happen that won't happen, and then they do. It's my favorite time of the year that isn't the season. Absolutely.
We got a pretty crazy question here that was made up when I wasn't around. So it says there's a lot of talk about the offensive line and wide receiver. Who do we draft at 23 in the first? Do we trade back? Do we jump up? Do we double dip? And give your thoughts. It's a lot of stuff. Lot of stuff. So I went on Facebook and I asked, and we got some pretty cool answers to this. Craig Morley, one of our favorites on there, says his heart says wide receiver, but his head says offensive line. And after the recent signing of the guard, I don't know if this would change for some of these guys, but remember that. John Dostal says I would have a deep conversation with my scout Adam Carlson to see how deep the draft class is and who fits into our team. But top needs are a guard and a tall wide receiver. Guard not so much anymore, so he's thinking tall wide receiver. And I gotta say, if one of those players, Laquan Treadwell or something like that, falls to the Vikings, that's a pick. That's a pick right there. Thomas Wayford Buge. At 23, all the good offensive tackles will be taken. If we take a wide receiver, it'll be a reach. And you don't really want to pick a guard in round one unless they're a multi-talented one. You can play both sides and center. I feel like I always say this, but the Vikings should try to trade down and pick up some more picks. Corbin Johnson said a name that I've already mentioned, Laquan Treadwell. John McDonald, wide receiver. Tommy Gunn, love his answers. He says via ESPN, the Vikings, in a historic, never-before-seen move, draft a bear as an offensive lineman with the 23rd overall pick. Simon Smith, a native of the Montana Rockies, he's simply magical on the offensive line, as he not only beats the defender, but dances his way to proper position on nearly every play. With 87 reps at the combine bench press, a 3.14 40 time, and other record-setting displays of non-human athletic prowess, some scouts were convinced he would play defensive line, although those rumors were never substantiated. Many recall the pre-draft drama with Mr. Smith and the incidents involving his generic heritage, which no doubt contributed to his slide in the draft. It shouldn't matter if I'm a black bear or a white bear, Smith said in an interview shortly after being drafted. The Vikings took me, and I'm here to play my heart out for the fans in Minnesota. And hey, is that a salmon? Fans of the NFL will no doubt be looking forward to the upcoming Bears-Vikings matchup for all the potential irony that may occur.
It's probably what's gonna happen. Like, if I was to bet, that would.
I would take that bear from The Departed. That one looked pretty good. Or not The Departed. What is that? The name of that movie?
The
Revenant.
The Revenant. I had the wrong movie with Mr. What's his face that finally won What's his dingle.
The Departed was a good movie, but you just improved it tenfold by sticking a bear into it.
The Departed needed more bears.
Yeah, every movie needs more bears.
That's why The Great Outdoors was such a good movie. Bears. Brandon Allis was the last one to reply. He said, I feel like this team doesn't have too many holes. So 23, I go for offensive tackle Jack Conklin, who I wrote about, or Taylor Decker if they're there. If not, guard Cody Whitehair, another guy I wrote about. And then I trade my second, third, and fifth to Arizona to move back into the first round at number 29 and take wide receiver Josh Doxson. I was waiting to hear that name because that's one that's often mocked to Minnesota and a guy that has been rumored to be able to slide down because he's not as physical as a lot of people hope wide receivers to be. But that might not be a big problem for Minnesota. Thank you guys for answering that. Next week, we got a question that is just about as strange, but could be a lot of fun.
I like this one. This is a fun one.
All right, so let's say that the Minnesota Vikings backup quarterback decides to hang up his cleats and retire.
Sean Hill.
And Sean Hill decides to hang it
He's
up.
old. He needs to call it quits.
So the Vikings need to dive into free agency, and they want to find a somewhat veteran or a young guy with talent to come in behind Teddy and work things out. Which of the following 4 guys would you rather have? Johnny Football Manziel, RG3, Christian Ponder, or Tim Tebow? Those are the only 4 guys in free agency. You gotta pick one. Who is it? And we'll discuss our answers to that next week. That'll be a lot of fun.
This should start up a war. I'm excited to read this.
That's the nice thing about having opinions. There's different options here and different reasons to want each option. It could be a great idea for a discussion. Maybe our listeners have ideas as far as other landing spots for these players. I mean, only one of the quarterbacks on that list was undefeated in the NFL next year. Was on a team that didn't lose the whole time he was there.
Christian Ponder.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
But Tim Tebow, all he does is win, 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 no matter what. And Johnny Money Manziel, athleticism, attitude, it's all right there. RG3 has a history of success. He's got the Rookie of the Year. He put up stats similar to Aaron Rodgers during his rookie year. Potential? Who knows? These are some interesting ideas here. And on that note, that's all I have for this week. If you guys want to add anything else.
I have no bold statement. I'm gonna keep those few and far between until we get up to closer to camp time and all that good stuff. I just found out this week that I'm moving to El Paso, Texas. So if there's any of you listening to the show that are in the area, please feel free. Let me know where you're at. We can watch a game together sometime later this year. But yeah, that's some good news. I'll be moving from Virginia to Texas, so really excited about that. Hopefully I can see one of you guys down there.
Yeah, if you're from that area, send a message over to Mr. Smith on Twitter. What's your Twitter again, sir?
Purple Scolger.
Awesome. As you know, I post that in the podcast every week. So if you ever get lost, you can always ask us on social media, or it's right there in the articles on the Viking Age, on every app, pretty much anywhere. Mr. West, you got anything else you want to add aside from telling people to buy your art?
Yeah, buy my stuff. That's my plug. Nah, I'm good for the week.
The Walking Dead's still kicking. We had an amazing February over on The Walking Dead. We broke records for the website. And things are just still heating up. We got a big finale coming up in a couple weeks. But for now, there's still a lot of drama going on. So if you're a big fan of The Walking Dead, head on over to Undead Walking. I got some interesting stuff for you over there. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to us. I know that listening to a Vikings show during the off season, not quite the most exciting thing in the world, but we try to do what we can to keep things interesting. So thanks again, and remember to stay classy, Minnesota.